Welcome to episode 166 of the Various and Sundry podcast. I am your host, Matt Harmon, joined live from our virtual studio, not on the campus of Grace College and Theological Seminary. I'm joined by my good friend, my colleague, my co-host, and the man who has recovered most of his voice, John Scott Sloat.
Most of it, Doc. Most of it. The cough is still there. The general, I don't know what the right word is. The general raspiness, the raspy feeling of the voice is still there, and still get a coughing fit every now and then. Hopefully not on today's pod, but I have the mute button today.
Yes.
Which I did not have last week when we were in studio.
Yeah. So we can hide that from the listeners. We did have at least one listener, Steve in Cincinnati, reach out and express some concern about your health. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I think I'm on the mend still. I think I'm coming around.
I mean, you're a professional. You got to play hurt.
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
At this point in the season, everybody's dinged up, right? Everybody's got the nagging injuries. No one's 100% healthy. You just got to play through it.
Doc, what is our off season? Do we even have one? I mean, we've been going every week since January of 2020.
Yeah, 166 straight weeks now.
How far can we go?
I don't know, but
at what point do we become Cal Ripken, where the streak just becomes so integral to who we are that we can't take a break?
Yeah,
like do we go 500 and say we're taking a month off?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we are legitimately facing our biggest challenge coming up this May. Because you and I will both be gone for about a week and a half, leading Grace trips. You'll be in New York City. I'll be in London and Brussels. And so that's going to make it very difficult to record. So we will have to have one of our high-level planning sessions to see if we're going to record content in advance or whether we're just going to let the streak go.
Oh, gosh.
It's tough, isn't it?
Oh, that's so hard.
I know. I know. I mean, if you as listeners want to chime in, want to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at VNSPod. You can email the show, various and sundry podcast @gmail.com. We're on Facebook and YouTube. Reach out. Let us know what you think. Should we go ahead and hit pause on the streak and not record in advance, or should we go ahead and put some content in the can and just roll it out while we're apart on different continents?
Yeah. Or I mean, goodness, I wouldn't know what to do. We'll have to figure something out. Yeah,
absolutely. So
I have no ideas right now.
Yeah, I'm torn. I'm sure we might have some offers to guest host the pod.
I know. I was just thinking about that. Like, I'm sure there's 3 to 5 people out there that would love to step in. And
there are some people who are itching to use the microphones of the Various and Sundry podcast. But listen. I mean, we don't take this bully pulpit lightly, and so we're not just lightly going to hand it off to anybody and go that route. We're going to have to think this through. Probably going to have to check with our legal team to make sure that's even allowed, given our very detailed contracts. So, just have to make sure that we don't violate any of those. But
yeah, I mean, we could run into some name, image, likeness problems as well.
Yeah, can't have the NCAA cracking down on us.
Yeah.
All
right, let's move
John,
on to sports, shall we?
Yeah, let's talk some sports here. So we are in the midst of basketball madness here. It's March now, officially. And so college basketball season is ramping up. Regular season is done. Conference tournaments are underway this week. And
this Sunday is Selection Sunday, right?
Yeah, when this episode drops on Tuesday the 7th, will just be a matter of like 4 days away Yeah, 4 days away from the drop of the brackets. And you have the bracket challenge set up, correct?
Yeah, it's live. We got 5 to 7 guys in there, guys and gals in there right now.
Okay.
So, yeah, people can go click the link in the show notes. If you were in it last year, you should have gotten an email from Yahoo inviting you
Yeah.
back. My favorite bracket name thus far was Serious and Vundary podcast.
Okay. All right. A little play on the podcast name. I can appreciate that.
Yeah. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Do you have any idea who that is?
I believe Grant. I believe that's Grant.
Would that be he's our defending champion?
I believe so. Yeah.
He won it last year. Yeah. So we'll offer another signed copy of one of my books as the grand prize, unless you win it again, John, or unless I win it, which case I don't need copies of my own books.
Or signed copies of your own books. That's right.
Yeah, for sure. Have you watched any college basketball? Uh-oh. The mute button has come out. There we go.
Yeah, I actually hit the video button and got rid of myself there for a second as well. I've watched a couple of games, not a ton, but I've watched a little bit. It's been exciting to be in Indiana. IU has been playing well. Purdue playing very well also. So that's been a lot of fun. But other than that, just a game here or there, not a ton.
I think the tournament will be pretty wide open this year. I don't think there's a dominant team going in, and I think even a lot of the one seeds that I see, one night they'll look good, and other nights they look incredibly vulnerable. So I don't know what to make of it, which means maybe I've got a chance to win. Who knows? I think I've won one bracket competition in my entire lifetime. Have you won more than one? I know you won our initial one a couple years ago.
Yeah, I believe that was the first one I've won. I've been in the mix before. Like I remember one year, I had 3 of the 4 final 4 teams, and then lost it by a handful of points because Kansas lost to Kentucky. If you remember that year, that was the Anthony Davis year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was the only time I've ever won.
Yeah, the only time I won was when I was a doctoral student at Wheaton, and we did a pool among faculty, like PhD faculty, and also PhD students, and I managed to prevail in that one. So that was another a major accomplishment of mine during my doctoral studies at Wheaton. So that goes on line 3 maybe of the CV to make sure that's on there.
Yeah. Beat Doug Lou in bracket challenge.
Exactly. Yeah, he wasn't too happy about that, to be honest. So
who's Doug's team? Who does he root for?
He's kind of a Notre Dame guy.
Okay.
Though in fairness, he is a consistent person. I'm going to throw some shade at some of our listeners, I'm sure, in this, but the kind of fan who's like, well, I'm an IU basketball fan and a Notre Dame football fan. Stop. Just stop.
Pick a team.
Pick a team and go all in. Yeah. Right? Like, just come on. Stop that. That's just ridiculous. Anyway.
So he's consistent Notre Dame, football,
he is
basketball.
Consistent Notre Dame, which I appreciate.
Hockey as well?
I'm assuming so. I'm not sure how much he follows hockey.
Okay.
But let's talk some NBA. Your Knicks. They're on fire.
It's been huge. Yeah, they've won 9 straight. The atmosphere in the locker room is supposedly really good right now. Jalen Brunson is having quite the little season. Julius Randle had 40 some odd points the other day. Emmanuel quickly coming off the bench played really well. I mean, it's been a good season thus far.
Yeah,
9 in a row.
I saw a little bit of their game last night, so Sunday night, the double overtime win over the Celtics.
Yeah,
and man, quickly looked terrific. He was impossible to stop.
Yeah,
But
he's a little Energizer bunny out there, or he's just running all over the place. Very very energetic. He's fun to watch.
yes. So the Knicks are currently, I think, sitting in fifth in the East.
Fifth, and I think a game or two behind the Cavs for fourth.
Yeah. Yep. So that
Just
could
a
be an interesting
game.
first round matchup. Yep. But yeah, and then I saw a little bit of the Suns. I forget who they were playing. I was just paying attention. Really, it was Suns and Mavericks. I
Well,
think so.
Kevin Durant came back, right?
Yes. So yes, it was that, because I think that was Sunday as well. I think in that game there were 4 players who scored more than 30 points. Durant and Booker scored over 30, and so did Kyrie and Luka. So it was a lot of fun to watch.
I bet.
I
bet.
But yeah, I think with some of the trades that happened at the trade deadline, and as well as now with LeBron's injury, when will he come back? Will the Lakers stay in the play-in game? I think if LeBron is back and reasonably healthy, they could actually make a decent run into the Western Conference playoffs. But we'll see. We'll see. Spring training baseball as well. Anything you want to touch on there? Since that's more your department than mine.
Yeah. I think this week all the players are leaving to go play in the World Baseball Classic. So I believe that was started once baseball got eliminated from the Olympics, and so they moved and had this World Baseball Classic, and it happens, I think, this next week. So spring training is kind of on hold, and it'll be down for like a couple of weeks, and players will be back in time for the regular season, but they're going to the World Baseball Classic. I don't even know where it's at or where they're showing it, but it's coming up.
Yeah. To be honest, that's not even on my radar. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I also don't watch a lot of ESPN either, so I don't know if the ESPN's doing anything with it, talking about it. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. The big news out of spring training, though, has been the pitch clock. I'm assuming you've heard about this.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked a little bit about it before.
Yeah.
People have hot takes about the pitch clock. Some people really don't like it. In fact, there's a bracket in our Yahoo site that says "get rid of the pitch clock" or something to that effect.
Okay.
So the benefit of the pitch clock is these games are finishing in 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Almost 60 minutes quicker.
Yeah, I did see a clip on Twitter where somebody compared the same pitcher between, no pitch clock and pitch clock. And in the time it took the guy to throw like one pitch without a pitch clock, he had thrown like 3 or 4 with the advent of the pitch clock. I think that's going to be here to stay. They might tweak it, I don't know, in terms of like time and that sort of stuff, but I think that's going to be I think once the players are done complaining, the fans are going to love it. Fans are going to love it. And I also think I think the networks are going to like it that carry baseball. I know it cuts down theoretically on maybe some ad spaces, maybe not, I don't know, but I would think more people will watch.
I agree. I think more eyeballs. You can watch a game without it taking up your whole day.
Yeah.
I mean, you start a game and it's 3.5, 4 hours. My goodness, that's half your day.
Right.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's really gonna help people watch the game. There have been pitchers who are using it to their advantage. So they'll throw a pitch the second a guy gets into the batter's box to throw him off, or if he gets in the batter's box early, make him stand there for the whole length of the pitch clock and then throw it. The other thing that's changed this year, Doc, you remember PitchCom last year where catchers could hit buttons to communicate to their pitcher what pitch they wanted to throw? Do you remember this, PitchCom?
I don't actually know.
Yeah, so that was a thing. Catchers would have like a little wristband and they could press buttons on it and would hit an earpiece to the pitcher telling them what pitch they want them to throw. Well, now pitchers have that wristband, and they can punch in and say what pitch they want to throw to the catcher. And that is speeding things up really quickly too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, and I would think, it certainly also eliminates sign stealing when you got a guy on second base and, they have to, when the runners are on, they go to the whole complicated, 4 or 5 different signs, and only the pitcher and catcher know which one is the actual indicator of what pitch to throw. But that's interesting. I did not know about that one.
Yeah. Yep. So that started in the wake of the Astros in the trash can situation.
That's right. We should also mention before we wrap up our sports segment, Grace basketball. The last episode that dropped the day of Grace's championship game against Huntington, and that was a wild game. Grace pulled it out late. I think they ended up winning by 6, but they started out the game on a 9-0 run, and then they just went cold. And then a minute into the second half, they were down 16. Rallied all the way back. Didn't take their first lead in the second half until like a minute and a half left. So it was a long, but it was capacity crowd at the arena. It's the loudest I've ever heard that building.
That's fun.
And, it's just a great atmosphere. Like Huntington isn't that far away, so they had a decent size fan base there, and they were loud and obnoxious, and our fans were loud and sadly also obnoxious at points. So, but
that's part of it.
It is. So they won the Crossroads League tournament. They are now in the NAIA national tournament and are hosting one of the 16 pods that they do for the first 2 rounds. And they will play. This episode will drop on Tuesday, so this the same day that this episode drops. Grace will play Columbia International University. Grace is one of the 4 1 seeds, so Columbia is a 16 seed. And then, assuming Grace wins that, they would play the winner of Olivet Nazarene, the team that Grace beat last year at their place to advance to the Sweet 16, and Madonna. So the winner of that game, the 2 winners of those games will play Wednesday night. So this Grace team is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, they're a good team, and hopefully we can stick it to these 2 teams that we play, or I assume 2 games, and we can advance.
Yeah,
and go to Kansas City, right? That's where they play?
Yes. Yeah, rumor has it that Nate from Ohio will be in town.
Really?
Yeah. So we shall see. We shall see. But all right, John, you ready to move on?
Sure.
All right. Our topic for today is we're going to borrow the title of the article we're going to discuss. The title of the article is Why Are Young Liberals So Depressed? And it's an article by Matt, is it Iglesias? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Matt Iglesias. I know you struggle pronouncing names, so I'm glad I can step in and help you here.
Yeah, helpful. I mean, when I typically think of Iglesias, I think of it starting with an I, but his name actually begins with a Y. So he wrote an article that is essentially, it is responding to a CDC study. They did a youth risk behavior survey of American teenagers. And so a lot of findings came out of that. In particular, a pretty heavy emphasis on teenage girls suffering from extraordinarily high levels of sadness and depression. We can wander into that topic if we'd like, but Iglesias is more interested in trying to correlate some of these progressive political views and increased rates of depression among progressives and liberals. So that's kind of the thrust of it. But let's see. Let me read them. I think this is kind of his main point. Let me read this, and then I'll let you jump in here, John, and see what you think. In reading the article, it seemed to me like his main point was this couple of sentences here. Breaking things down by gender and ideology, they find that liberal girls have the highest increase in depressive affect and conservative boys have the least. But liberal boys are more depressed than conservative girls, suggesting an important independent role for political ideology. So that's kind of the idea here, basically. He's looking at the data and saying, look, it's striking that the most notable contribution to this seems to be more political ideology than it is even gender. So what were your thoughts in as you read this initially?
A couple of things. One, he does nod to Jonathan Haidt's suggestion that this is in part social media's doing.
Agreed.
And Matt Iglesias has a chart in there where it breaks down liberal boys, liberal girls, conservative guys, sort of into and where their depressive rates are at. And couldn't get to the mute button in time. As I look at that chart, I mean, things really seem to ramp up around, between 2011 and 2014.
Yep.
That to me seems to be right in the sweet spot of the rise of social media.
Yeah.
Like I remember having Twitter in 2009 and people thinking I was weird for having Twitter. So yeah, that 2011 to 2014 strike me as really the sweet spot of that. So I do think it's a both and. Like I don't think it's just social media. But so that was one thought I had. And then I also had the thought it's kind of always been true that liberals were a little bit more depressed than conservatives, and I think that's natural to the ideology, right? Conservatives generally are happy with the way things are, very broadly speaking, whereas as liberals want to progress and aren't as happy with the way things are, and so those were some of my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I do think that's probably. I think you're onto something there for sure. That chart where it clearly ticks up, starting with like you said around 2011, and then just starts this almost this 45-degree angle up on the chart. Though it is interesting if you look at that, female conservatives apparently stayed lower on the scale, less depressed than their liberal counterparts until 2014, and that's when their line starts to increase upward, which is kind of an interesting dynamic there.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. I don't know why that's so.
I don't know. I mean, look, I think there's a lot of factors that go into this, but I do think you're right that part of it is intrinsic to the political ideologies. I think that there's just the reality of if you are progressive in your political outlook, I think you probably are more susceptible to some of these, indicators of depression and mental health issues. There was a line on. He has a quote in here from. Are
you talking about Taylor Lorenz?
No, I'm talking about Jill Filipovich.
Oh.
It's a little ways down in the article. There's a quote in there from her that I thought was helpful, where she says, Quote, I am increasingly convinced that there are tremendously negative long-term consequences, especially to young people, coming from this reliance on the language of harm and accusations that things one finds offensive are, quote, deeply problematic or even violent. Just about everything researchers understand about resilience and mental well-being suggests that people who feel like they are the chief architects of their own life, or to mix metaphors, that they captain their own ship, not that they are simply being tossed around by an uncontrollable ocean, are vastly better off than people whose default position is victimization, hurt, and a sense that life simply happens to them and they have no control over their response. So I thought that was actually insightful, that if your basic paradigm is, and again, these are very broad strokes, right? That conservatives tend to be more of the mind of, well, yeah, there's bad things in the world, but I have a large degree of influence and maybe even control over many aspects of my life. Not all of them, but many aspects.
Yeah.
But if your mindset is, I'm pretty much helpless and tossed around by all these cultural currents and, family situations or whatever, that understandably that can lead to higher levels of depression and those kinds of mental health issues. Wouldn't you think?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I think, I thought you were going to quote Taylor Lorenz from earlier in the article, where she talks about sort of probably the liberal outlook, right? Taylor Lorenz says, we're living in a late stage capitalist hellscape during an ongoing deadly pandemic with record wealth inequality, zero social safety net and job security, as climate change cooks the world.
Yeah.
End quote. I do think that's, when that's your constant message of the doom and gloom, oh my goodness, I had to go to college to get a job. Now I'm in such debt that I'll never get out. I'm never going to retire. Sort of this like even bigger than just like, there's nothing for me to do. It's just like, no. It's worse than that. The whole world is going to cave in on you. And the whole system's set against you. I think the optimism of a broadly conservative ideology is helpful, where it's like, no, I can. There are some things that are just going to be terrible in life, and I have been born in such times, but I'm going to do everything I can to make it right and make it good. But there's also, and those people that have that outlook and ideology, I think, tend to be less depressed because they're working to achieve something.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is also a place where it's helpful to think about what, regardless of what's either side you're on in terms of the political spectrum, that as believers, our primary allegiance obviously is to Jesus, to his gospel, to his kingdom. And that part of the beauty of the gospel is that it both has an answer for why the world is as messed up as it is. And it also has an answer for what is the solution. And it also reminds us that our lives now matter. They're important. They are at some level eternally significant. But this world is also not our home. Yeah. And so regardless of where we fall on the political spectrum, you can easily fall into idolatry when it comes to, if you're a progressive, thinking it all rests on us to try to transform the world into this utopian state. Or if you're a conservative, you can fall into the trap of, if we just fix the right things and return things back to the good old days and restore culture to what it was, or biblical to more biblical values, then everything will be great. And the reality is, neither of those answers are ultimately what the gospel holds out. That our hope is in a new creation our hope is in a new heavens and a new earth where righteousness dwells, and it's ruled over not by a benign president and a Congress and a Supreme Court, but ruled over by Jesus, who is executive, legislative, and judicial branch all in one, and will do so perfectly. And so I think that it's those kinds of things that either direction you go on the political spectrum, you can easily fall into a form of idolatry where you put too much hope in this, in transforming this world or restoring this world. And that's a problem that I think we as believers need to call out as we see it.
Yeah, no, 100% agreed.
We only got a few minutes left on this segment, but do you want to touch on it all? The he links to the Jonathan Haidt article. I would encourage people to read that. I think it's really good. He basically lays out how social media are especially damaging to girls' psychological health. And there's a link to his article in there that I think and that article is really good. It's called Facebook's. Let's see here. Let me pull it up. The Dangerous Experiment on Teen Girls by Jonathan Haidt, and that's in the Atlantic. But we can throw a link into the show notes on that. But yeah,
what did you think of Matt Iglesias' answer to some of these problems, where we have to reframe our problems, we have to think through them more carefully? Do you think there's any? I mean, from a secular standpoint, is that a helpful answer? Is that not good enough? There's better answers out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a secular perspective, I think that's a helpful piece. He does talk about even the value of kind of unplugging from some of these kind of situations and networks. I mean, there's a running joke in the Harmon house that before we check Twitter, we often say, okay, let's go find out what I'm supposed to be angry about.
Yeah.
Just as a reminder of, okay, this platform, maybe more than any other social media, is oriented towards outrage. Instagram has its own issues. Facebook has its own issues, but it seems like Twitter in particular is oriented towards stoking outrage or finding things you're supposed to be outraged about. And so, it's interesting. One of the simple suggestions that he makes in there is basically like unplug from it.
Yeah.
Like unplug from it. And if you're constantly just immersing yourself in the sort of doom and gloom of social media posts about, we're going to have this climate catastrophe in 10 years. We're going to, the economy is going to crash through the floor. There's going to be a civil war in the United States, like all these sort of doom and gloom things. I think it is helpful to say, maybe I don't need to be immersed in that context. And that doesn't mean that you don't care about those issues necessarily. It just means you're choosing not to allow them to dominate your mind in an unhealthy way.
Yeah. No, I think I think I've said this before. If I had a job that allowed me to get rid of a smartphone, I think I would.
I mean, it's worth considering.
Yeah. If I had if my phone was not my key to my hotel room when I travel, I think that, and I wasn't so dependent on Google to get places, I think I'd strongly consider getting rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, the nature of your job in particular, I think, is as much as you're dealing with email and stuff like that. And I mean, you also you re-entered Facebook when you started this new role.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you're on it, but
I mean, it's an app on my phone that I open, and it's easy to scroll.
So, yeah, for sure. But, honestly, I think one piece that's missing from this conversation, and it's understandable just because it's not a Christian author coming from a Christian perspective. I think the more real flesh and blood in-person relationships you have, the healthier you're going to tend to be, and the less dependent you're going to be on social media for identity and even just your sense of purpose. I think if you're embedded in real life, flesh and blood relationships, and in particular as a Christian, if you're plugged into a local church, you're in a small group maybe where people know you and you know them, I just know it is easy to demonize people when you just see a tweet.
Yeah.
But when they're a real human being in front of you, even if they hold those same views, it's just different, right? You're probably not going to say the sort of snarky, sarcastic comment because you've got a real human being in front of you.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, face to face with people just changes the way you disagree. Yeah, I just think it's going to be healthier. I think that having friendships across the aisle, so to speak, is ultimately a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So we will post links to the Iglesias article, and then John, why don't you make sure you pull out the Jonathan Haidt link in that and put that as a separate link for people to check out. But I think it's probably time for us to move on. You ready to move on?
Yep.
Time now for This Day in Sports History.
Okay, this day in sports history, March 7th, 2023. On this day in sports history in 1857, I didn't even know there were sports then, baseball decides 9 inning constitutes an official game, not 9 runs. Apparently it was 9 runs at one point.
Yeah, but isn't it wild to think that's before the Civil War? That's how long baseball has been around.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful? And now they got a pitch clock. Yeah. Hopping forward 100 and 30 some years. Wayne Gretzky breaks his own NHL season record with 136 assists. Good for Wayne.
The great one.
The great one. That's a good nickname as an athlete.
Yeah, I'd say.
1 year later, 1987, Mike Tyson beats James Bone Crusher Smith by unanimous decision in a 12-round match in Las Vegas for the WBA heavyweight boxing title. Did you ever watch Tyson?
Yeah. Yeah, he was amazing. Not a lot, because by then a lot of stuff had moved on to pay-per-view, and I, obviously was not in high school ready to drop money on that. But yeah,
with a name like James Smith, you need a nickname. You like Bone
need
Crusher.
That nickname. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Who's afraid of James Smith? That's your accountant. That's not a boxer.
All right. 9 years later, 96, Magic Johnson, second NBA player to reach 10,000 career assists. Who was the first?
I don't know. My guess would be Oscar Robertson, maybe.
Okay. And then I imagine John Stockton passed him?
Yes, I believe John Stockton is the all-time leader.
That was my understanding as well. Okay. 10 years after that, 2016, 20 years after that, I got that wrong. Peyton Manning announces his retirement from the Denver Broncos in the NFL after winning the Super Bowl.
Yes.
In which he played terribly, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he was not good. The Broncos won that with their defense, for sure.
Also in 2016, Russian tennis, I think it's fair to say superstar, Maria Sharapova reveals she failed a drug test for meldonium, I don't know, at the Australian Open. Meldonium. At the Australian Open in January. Subsequently, she was suspended for 15 months. Why 15 months?
I don't know.
That feels very arbitrary.
I'm now going to quickly look up what meldonium, what is it for? Let's see here. It is used for, come on. It is used for as a metabolic modulator, changing how some hormones accelerate or slow down enzymatic reactions in the body. So it changes your metabolism.
That's apparently. I don't know any words you just said.
I bet you could ask Andrea though. She would know all of those words, and she would be able to explain to you probably what meldonium does.
She probably could.
You got a preference out of those, John?
Oh my goodness. Maybe baseball deciding to go to 9 innings.
Okay.
You did not agree with that one.
I'm okay with it. I don't think that'd been my preference. I mean, here's the thing. Here we get into the challenge of you get into not a rut, but a lot of the same names come up over and over again, right? So, Peyton Manning, Magic Johnson, Wayne Gretzky, Mike Tyson, all those come up regularly. So I think I probably would put it down between Sharapova and baseball going to 9 innings. You want to go with baseball, right?
Well, 1, I love baseball. 2, I love the nostalgia that there was a time when it wasn't 9 innings.
Okay. All right. We can go with that. Let's go with that.
Baseball.
One thing you liked.
I have recently started a book. As a part of the Dispatch Book Club that I'm a part of, called American Midnight, The Great War, A Violent Peace, and Democracy's Forgotten Crisis. Basically covering the time from World War I through the Roaring 20s and sort of just everything that happened in there. Apparently, there's a lot of history we don't, we kind of go from World War I to Al Capone, and we don't talk about a lot of other things going on in that time frame.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
yeah, it was. It's been an interesting read. I mean, I just read about a violent mob in Tulsa. A court. They arrested these workers, and these workers, although with no evidence, were convicted. And on the way, they were jumped by a group, literally tarred and feathered, and sent running into the woods. And who did this to them? Well, the chief of police did in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And this was apparently a fairly common occurrence. So, fascinating.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I am going to go with... I wasn't sure how to quite describe this, but it's just been a great week of basketball between the Grace game on Tuesday night of last week and then this Saturday, Lakeland Christian played in their sectional tournament, won their semifinal game on Saturday morning, came back Saturday night, lost the championship game. But in between, my lovely bride and I, we came down to Fort Wayne and popped in on the Sloats.
Yeah, that was fun.
To see your lovely new home.
Yeah. Yep. Gave you the nickel tour, and
I think it was closer to a quarter. I mean, that was it's a good size house, and you left no stone unturned. So
yeah. So we enjoyed having you guys up here even though it was brief.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. All right. We have talked some basketball, both NBA and college. We have talked about why are young liberals so depressed. We have talked about baseball, moving from 9 runs to 9 innings for an official game. We have talked about American Midnight, a book with fascinating historical tidbits that John did not know.
Yeah.
And we've talked about a fun week of basketball. So I think by definition, we have covered our various and sundry topics. And so all that's left to say is, until next time, the Lord bless you all real good.
Later.